chosen ones, you're not just the one who got away, you're the one who broke free, leveled up and rewrote the script. From lovers who doubted you, family who underestimated you, and friends who tried to hold you back, your freedom isn't just an exit, it's a revolution. Your escape shattered their illusions, left their control games in ruins, and now, your light is the envy they can't ignore and the inspiration they can't replicate. You shook their foundations the moment you walked away. They had built their sense of control, their comfort, their power around the belief that you couldn't leave. To them, you were a fixed point, a source they could draw from endlessly, a lifeline they assumed would never be severed. And yet, with one decisive act, you broke their illusions. You didn't just leave a room, you collapsed an entire structure they had spent years constructing. The shockwaves of your departure didn't just ripple, they roared through their lives, leaving them scrambling to recalibrate their worlds without you as their anchor. They underestimated your strength because they only saw what they wanted to see. They believed their manipulation, their guilt-tripping, their whispers of inadequacy would keep you tethered. They relied on your loyalty, your love, your history together to trap you in a loop of obligation. But they didn't understand the depth of your courage or the clarity of your vision. When you saw the games, when you felt the weight of their control, you chose yourself. That choice shattered the dynamic they depended on and revealed their weakness. Without you, their house of cards was destined to fall. Their reactions? Chaotic. They alternated between disbelief and denial, anger and confusion. For some, your absence forced them to see themselves for what they truly were, users, manipulators, people who thrived on dependency. For others, it sparked resentment and envy. They couldn't comprehend how you escaped the chains they had polished so carefully. Some even tried to replicate your strength, imitating your independence, but their attempts were hollow. They lacked the fire, the authenticity, the raw determination you carried when you stepped away. But their greatest shock wasn't just that you left, it was that you thrived. They expected you to crawl back, defeated and apologetic, once you faced the difficulty of standing alone. Instead, you grew. You reclaimed your energy, your time, your worth. You became untouchable. And in doing so, you showed them a truth they couldn't unsee. You were never theirs to control, to mold, to exploit. You were always destined for more. In your absence, their envy festers. They envy the peace you found, the clarity you've gained, and the confidence you exude. They replay their conversations with you, dissecting every word, every decision, trying to understand what gave you the strength they lack. For some, this envy becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront their own shortcomings. For others, it transforms into bitterness, a desperate attempt to invalidate your growth because acknowledging it would mean admitting their failure, and yet their opinions no longer matter. You've reclaimed the narrative. You're not their lifeline, their scapegoat, their project. You've become their reckoning. While they remain trapped in cycles of manipulation and dependency, you've risen beyond their reach. They thought you'd never leave. Now they can't stop obsessing over the fact that you did. Drop a comment, "I broke the chains," if they thought you'd never leave. Your freedom is a declaration, a thunderclap that echoes across the boundaries of control and expectation. Breaking free wasn't just about leaving toxic relationships. It was about reclaiming every part of yourself they tried to diminish. You severed the threads of manipulation, untangling years of subtle conditioning and expectations that suffocated your spirit. Every step away was an act of rebellion, a refusal to let anyone define your worth, your direction, or your identity. They didn't see it coming because they underestimated the quiet storm within you. They banked on your compliance, your need for approval, your desire to keep the peace. But the moment you chose yourself, the power dynamic shifted. You stopped feeding the system they relied on to keep you small, and without your energy to fuel their agendas, their hold crumbled. You've done what they couldn't, escape the cycles they've surrendered to, while they sit in the confines of their own making, tethered by fear and complacency. You have carved a path that leaves them questioning everything they thought they knew about control, dependence, and the roles they assigned you. Their jealousy reveals itself in whispers, in attempts to downplay your progress or dismiss your transformation. They try to replicate your journey, mimicking your steps in shallow ways, but they fail because they lack the authenticity that powered your rise. They don't understand that your freedom wasn't just an action, it was a decision, a declaration, a dismantling of everything they used to define you. They can't replicate what they don't understand, and that failure only fuels their frustration. Some regret losing you, not because they valued you, but because they underestimated your worth. They thought your presence in their lives was guaranteed, something they could mold to their convenience. Now, in your absence, they see the void you left, the energy you once gave freely. They're left grappling with their own limitations, confronted by the hollowness of what they offered in return. They realize too late that they were never the ones who defined you. You were the one holding everything together, and without you, their worlds are unraveling. They wove a web around you with precision, each thread designed to bind you tighter. They used triangulation to twist your reality, playing people against one another to keep you guessing, doubting, second-guessing your every move. They planted seeds of guilt in your mind, nurturing them into chains that felt too heavy to break. They whispered half-truths, subtle accusations, and veiled threats, knowing that confusion would keep you compliant. And when all else failed, they leaned into emotional dependency, feeding you the lie that without them, you would be lost. Every tactic was deliberate, calculated to keep you bound to their control. Yet you saw through it, didn't you? Slowly, steadily, the truth began to unravel. You noticed how they thrived on your hesitation, how every time you compromised yourself they grew stronger. You began to see the patterns, the triangulation that kept you isolated, the guilt that silenced your voice, the dependency that drained your energy. And then you did the unthinkable. You chose yourself. Choosing yourself wasn't just an act of rebellion, it was an act of liberation. It wasn't easy. Walking away from their web meant facing their wrath, their tears, their desperate attempts to pull you back. But it also meant reclaiming your life, your power, your identity. You didn't just untangle their threads, you burned the entire web to the ground. You silenced the guilt, dismantled the manipulation, and refused to play the role they had written for you. And they hated it. They hated that their tricks no longer worked, that their carefully constructed narratives crumbled in your absence. They called you selfish, cold, heartless, labels meant to drag you back into their game. But the truth is, their anger wasn't about you. It was about their loss of control. They couldn't fathom how you found the strength to leave when they had spent years convincing you that you were powerless. By choosing yourself, you did more than escape their manipulation. You exposed it. You forced them to confront the truth they worked so hard to hide, that their power was never real. It was borrowed, stolen, taken from you, and now that it's gone, they are left to face themselves, their games, and their own emptiness. Meanwhile, you move forward, untangled, unstoppable, and free. Your freedom strikes them like lightning, illuminating every shadow they tried to hide behind. Your independence isn't just a statement, it's a mirror, unflinching and merciless, forcing them to confront truths they've long buried. They see in you the strength they lack, the courage they abandoned, the authenticity they could never reach. Every move you make, every boundary you set, and every success you achieve magnifies their own limitations. Your light doesn't just shine, it exposes. They worked so hard to convince you and themselves that you needed them. Their attempts to hold you back were never about your flaws, but about their insecurities. Your growth disrupts their carefully curated sense of superiority. They see you thriving, untethered and unapologetic, and it unsettles them because it proves what they've denied for so long, that their control wasn't your anchor, it was your cage. That's why the Obsidian Inner Order exists. For the unstoppable forces like you. This isn't a feel-good club, it's a council of game-changers who own their destiny. Every week, over 450 power players step into electrifying calls that aren't just conversations, they're strategies for ascension. And when the moment hits, these aren't fleeting sparks, they're recorded so you can channel the energy anytime you're ready to launch your next move. The private Discord? It's not just a space, it's a living, breathing oracle of transformation. Here, the world's sharpest minds and souls trade secrets you won't hear anywhere else. For the seekers hungry for mastery, dive into Modern Manifestation Mechanics, our exclusive grimoire. With 3 chapters unlocked for members, you'll learn how to turn your home into an energetic abundance magnet, wield foundational spellcraft to manifest in the physical realm, and channel otherworldly forces to elevate your reality. But that's not all. You'll also access interviews with real targeted individuals and video specials so potent they make the YouTube archons tremble. This isn't a membership, it's a movement. It's where the chosen gather, where ascension accelerates, and where destinies are rewritten. What are you waiting for? The search ends here. The rise begins now. The link is waiting in the description. Step into your power. When you stepped away, they were forced to face their reflection, distorted by their own unfulfilled potential. They noticed the gaps in their lives, the places where fear held them back, and they resent you for highlighting those voids. They see your strength and authenticity as accusations, as if your mere existence points to everything they could have been but chose not to become. Their discomfort isn't about you. It's about the parts of themselves they've avoided for years, and yet, for all their bitterness, they can't look away. Your freedom captivates them because it challenges their narrative. They see your transformation and feel the weight of their excuses. They try to dismiss you, to downplay your achievements, but their attempts fall flat because the truth is undeniable. You rose while they stayed stagnant. They've spent so long crafting illusions of strength, and now your authenticity casts those illusions into stark relief. Some attempt to mimic you, imitating the external markers of your freedom, but they fail because they lack the internal foundation. They don't understand that your strength wasn't born from rebellion alone, but from the clarity of self-awareness and the refusal to compromise your soul. They try to replicate your path without doing the work, and their frustration grows when their efforts crumble under the weight of their inauthenticity. For others, your freedom triggers shame, though they rarely admit it. They see in you the person they could have been if only they had chosen differently. Your independence calls them to account for every opportunity they ignored, every fear they let guide them. It's not your responsibility to heal their wounds or carry their regret. Your only task is to keep moving forward, unshaken and unbothered. Your freedom is a mirror they can't escape, and the reflection it offers will either break them or push them to change. Either way, your success is proof that greatness was never a privilege, it was a choice. Comment below, I reflect greatness. If your rise forces them to reckon with themselves, let them deal with their discomfort. It's not yours to carry. Keep rising. Keep reflecting. When you walked away, it wasn't just an act of defiance, it was the spark of a profound transformation. In severing the ties that drained your spirit, you created space for your true self to emerge. Leaving wasn't a moment of weakness, it was a moment of awakening. The clarity you now possess didn't come from outside validation, but from the silence left behind when the noise of manipulation, guilt, and dependency finally ceased. In that silence, you heard your own voice for the first time, raw and unfiltered, guiding you toward the life you were meant to live. Your spiritual growth came not from seeking approval, but from rejecting it. By choosing to break free, you dismantled every narrative that told you to stay small, to conform, to carry the weight of others' expectations. What followed was a peace that felt almost foreign, a stillness that allowed you to see yourself without distortion. In that stillness, you uncovered your power, your worth, and the boundless potential they had tried to suppress. But your escape didn't just transform you. It sent ripples through the lives of those around you. They see your liberation and feel its weight. Some question their own patterns, their own cages, because your freedom proves that leaving is possible. Others feel threatened, unsettled by the mirror your growth holds to their stagnation. Whether they resist or reflect, your decision has become a force they cannot ignore. Envy isn't just a fleeting emotion, it's a force that reveals the depths of someone's inner turmoil. When they look at you, free and untouchable, they don't just see your success, they see everything they are not. Your liberation highlights their stagnation, your authenticity exposes their facades, and your courage mocks their fear. Envy festers in their minds because your story is the reminder they cannot escape. They had the same opportunities to rise, but they chose comfort over growth, control over truth, and illusions over freedom. They try to mimic your path, thinking that duplicating your external actions will yield the same results. They adopt the language of independence, the postures of confidence, but it never lands. Their attempts fall flat because they are rooted in imitation, not transformation. They don't understand that your growth didn't come from playing a role. It came from dismantling every false identity imposed on you. They want the rewards without the sacrifice, the freedom without the fire, and it burns them to see you thriving in ways they cannot replicate. Their envy drives them to undermine you, to claw at the foundation of your progress. They spread doubts, questioning your motives, your authenticity, your success. They attempt to rewrite your narrative, casting themselves as victims of your ascent or framing your rise as a fluke. Their words and actions are desperate attempts to tether you back to their level, to reassert the power they lost when you broke free. But their envy is also a teacher, a signal to stay vigilant. It reminds you that not everyone who watches your rise is celebrating it. Some study your every move, not to understand, but to find weakness. They wait for cracks, hoping for a moment to strike, to discredit, to drag you back. You must protect your energy, your boundaries, and your truth with the same intensity that carried you out of their reach in the first place. Their attempts to undermine you will fail, not because they lack effort, but because they lack authenticity. They cannot destroy what was built from the deepest parts of your soul. Your freedom is a force of nature, unyielding and unapologetic. Let their envy fuel your resolve, a reminder of the distance you've traveled and the strength you've cultivated. You owe them no explanations, no justifications. Their envy is theirs to bear, a reflection of their own choices and limitations. Stay vigilant, but stay unbothered. They cannot replicate what they don't understand, and they cannot touch what they fear. Your rise is proof that their control was never real. And now, neither is their relevance. Let their envy be the shadow to your light, always chasing but never catching. Keep rising, keep shining. They can only watch. Walking away comes with a weight that few can understand until they've carried it. You left behind not just people, but the pieces of yourself you had given to them, your loyalty, your love, your energy. It wasn't easy. The bonds you severed weren't superficial. They were forged through shared history, through moments of trust and vulnerability. But those bonds also became chains, and leaving meant breaking them, even as the shards cut into your heart. Nostalgia has a way of whispering lies. It tries to pull you back with memories of better times, moments of laughter, and fleeting connections that felt genuine. Guilt creeps in. questioning your choice, making you wonder if you were too harsh, too selfish, too unyielding. But you know the truth. Staying would have meant sacrificing yourself to keep those moments alive, clinging to fragments while your spirit crumbled under the weight of their demands. The pain is real, but so is the clarity that comes with it. Walking away wasn't about abandoning them, it was about choosing you. It meant accepting that some connections were draining your light, suffocating your growth, and keeping you small. The sacrifices you made were not losses, they were exchanges. You gave up the familiar to gain the infinite. You let go of their expectations to embrace your freedom. Liberation always demands a price. You paid it with your tears, your longing, your doubts, but the reward was yourself, unbound and unstoppable. You walk alone not because you have to, but because you choose to. The path of the lone wolf is not one of isolation, it is one of mastery. Solitude sharpens you, teaching you the lessons that the noise of the crowd drowns out. You've learned to listen to your own instincts, to trust your inner voice, and to rely on your strength. There's power in moving through the world untethered, unbound by the expectations of others. Your independence isn't a retreat, it's a declaration that your freedom is non-negotiable. The lone wolf is feared, not because they are alone, but because they are whole. Others see your solitude and mistake it for loneliness, yet they cannot deny the power you exude. They don't understand that your choice to walk alone is rooted in self-respect, in refusing to accept less than what aligns with your truth. Your freedom unsettles them because it challenges their reliance on external validation, exposing the hollow spaces where their own strength should reside. And yet your presence fascinates. They watch you, drawn to the mystique of someone who thrives beyond their grasp. They wonder how you find peace in your silence, how you grow stronger without their approval. It's simple. Your solitude is not emptiness. It's sovereignty. Drop a howl. I thrive alone. If your power grows in the quiet places others fear to tread, let them wonder. You've already proven that the lone wolf fears nothing, not even themselves. Your absence is more powerful than your presence ever was, forcing those you left behind to confront the void you once filled. They see the spaces you occupied, your energy, your loyalty, your efforts, and are now left to face the truth of how they mishandled it. For some, regret takes root. They replay their choices, every word, every action, and realize too late what they lost. Their guilt is a weight they cannot escape, a constant reminder of their failure to value you when they had the chance. But not all reflections lead to growth. For others, bitterness rises to the surface, a shield against the shame of their own shortcomings. They double down on their narratives, casting you as the villain to justify their behavior. They cling to the idea that your departure was the problem, refusing to acknowledge the cycles of manipulation, neglect, or envy they perpetuated. Their denial doesn't change the truth. It only traps them in the very stagnation you escaped. Your growth is a ripple that touches everything. They see you thriving and are forced to reckon with the fact that their presence wasn't essential to your success. Some will quietly try to imitate your steps, hoping to taste the freedom you've claimed, while others will stew in resentment, unable to admit they were the architects of their own limitations. Either way, your transformation exposes them, holding up a mirror they cannot turn away from. Their reactions are irrelevant. Your growth speaks for itself. You're not just the one who got away. You're the one who ascended, defying every limit they tried to impose. You didn't leave quietly. You left boldly, carving a path that shook the foundations of their control. They underestimated your strength, dismissed your resilience, and failed to see the fire that was building within you. Now, as you stand in your power, you are more than a memory. You are a force they cannot ignore. Your freedom is more than your own. It's a message to anyone still bound by expectations, manipulation, or fear. By choosing yourself, you've shown that liberation is not only possible, but necessary. You've become a testament to the unyielding spirit, an example of what it means to refuse anything that doesn't align with your truth. Your light disrupts, inspires, and demands acknowledgement, even from those who would rather deny your transformation. Keep moving forward, unapologetically free, unbound and unshaken. Let the whispers of doubt, envy, or regret fade into irrelevance as you continue to rise. They can watch, they can wonder, but they cannot stop the momentum you've built. Your story matters. Share your truth, your struggles, and your victories. Your words will inspire others who need the reminder that freedom is within reach. Let them hear your voice, see your strength, and know that the path you've walked is not only yours, it's a call for others to awaken. Keep shining, lone wolf. The world needs your light.